No, we'd have to start all over again. Good. All right. Well, let's call to order this regular meeting for the board of directors, Mojave Air and Spaceport at Rattan Field on this fine 7 November 2023. Let's see. Who wants to do Pledge of Allegiance today? I pick on Floyd entirely too much.
I'll do it.
You'll do it. All right, Jim, you're up.
Let me mute this.
When you're ready.
I thought you were going to say, let me look.
No, I've got it recorded. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Director Coleman.
Here.
Director Morgan.
Here.
Director Ballantyne.
Here.
Director Allred.
Here.
And Director Barney is here. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved. With the agenda?
For the agenda.
Oh, okay. Yes, I motion to approve the agenda as presented. Or maybe Bob will second.
I think we've got a motion on the floor and at least 1 second, so we're good to go. All of us are in person today. That's good. So we don't need to do the roll call votes. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. Community announcements and public comments for items not on the agenda. What community announcements do we have?
Yes, you have one here from Rosamond. I was out at West Park Elementary School early this morning when they brought in the mobile Vietnam wall and started to set it up. So it'll be up by 4 o'clock today and remain up until the 12th, 24/7. West Park, you get off at Rosamond Boulevard, go down to 40th, turn south, and there it is on your left. We hope that you all come.
Yes, thank you very much. We've discussed that.
Is that 40th West? I assume it is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I didn't know if you could go.
You can go down 35th or 40th. Either.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I know we've had a couple of reminders leading up to this for the Replica Vietnam Memorial Wall. So thank you for the reminder, and I'm glad they finally made it into town. Any other community announcements? Lynn, you look like you're champing at the bit. Right. And is your microphone on?
Yes, it is on. Okay, good afternoon. I do have a few. There is an announcement in there from the East Kern Career Expo that was held. The link gives footage of it. Turnout was really great. Everybody said that they had a good time. Kids had a good time. Also, Rosamond News has a great video of it on their website as well, if you check out their site. I'm not sure if Jess from the Friends of Amateur Rocketry is on. We are hosting. Is
You guys hear me? Yes. Oh, great. Okay. Is this any better? We're pretty excited about all the people coming out. So if you're interested, check out website. There's in the board packet. There's also a schedule and an official announcement from us. But yeah, so that'll be happening around here.
Jim Ballantyne, I have a question. Could you just talk a little bit about the altitudes?
Sure. How high they're going up?
Yeah, I just think I've been out there several times and
Oh yeah.
saw that.
So we
1,000 feet.
yeah, one of the biggest boons of the FAR site is the fact that they allow waivers that, unlike anywhere else in the United States, we have teams that, but we're allowing all skill levels. So there's one starting off with apogees at 7,000. We've got several going for 30,000 feet. There's one team who's trying to get to 100,000. We'll see how that goes. So it should be an interesting mix of folks. We also have 6 hybrid engine rockets right now and 7 liquids. So yeah, these are all like student-run teams from around the country, and yeah, we're pretty hyped about this.
Is it open to the public?
Oh yes.
Okay. I thought it
will
was.
be open to the public. Yep.
Yeah, if you haven't made it out to Friends of Amateur Rocketry, that site is an absolute trip. I was there but earlier on in this summer, and 1 minute there was a 1,000-pound rocket on the launch pad just sitting out in the desert, and just a few minutes later it was at 407,000 feet. It's totally nuts and absolutely worth the hike on out there. So,
What's really exciting about that place, and I mean, first of all, is there's an impending expansion of it, which is also great. But for those folks, like, I don't know if we'll be able to get other folks out there onto the pads, but they have bunkers there which allow you to be much closer to the rockets during launch, which is a very unique feature of that site, which is making me certainly quite excited to see what this is going to turn into.
that's fantastic. So, for do you have any advice on for somebody who wants to attend this event, what they do to get out there? Do they just show up? Do they have to register ahead of time?
Yep. For people who want to just come as attendees of the event, we would like to have y'all register ahead of time on the website. Closer to, there will be a button to be able to purchase a ticket. We just kind of want to be able to manage inflow and outflow of folks. When we're out there, we don't want anybody randomly walking into the site. If somehow potentially you are representing a company and want to sponsor the event, then please reach out to us directly. This is it's a bit of a thing to take on, and then hopefully we're sorting out what that would look like right now as well. But yeah, you would have to register ahead of time. It's a pretty small fee, but it's entirely open to the public.
And how much is the cost of a ticket?
Oh goodness. Well, it's out in June, so
Right.
and it's probably going to be about $10.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Nothing outrageous.
Awesome. Well, yeah, good thing to put on the calendar. Thanks. Was that one more?
Yeah, someone has their hands up.
Okay.
Yes. Hi. I have a couple of community announcements I'd like to make. The first one is just a reminder that the Veterans Day ceremony is going to be held at 11 a.m. at Legacy Park at the Mojave Air and Spaceport. The guest speaker is going to be Kenneth Razor Stitt, and that will be at Legacy Park in Mojave on Veterans Day. And then Plain Crazy Saturday will be taking place November 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Richam Field at Mojave Air and Spaceport. Inside the boardroom, the guest speaker will be retired Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Williams, and he is a NASA test pilot for the NASA Armstrong Research Flight Test Center at Edwards Air Force Base. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, Lynn, I think we're in the middle of you.
That's okay. With the amateur rocketry, we are working with their team, and just to put it out there that they are looking for some volunteers, and especially in need of like a medical tent for all of the students that will be out there. A lot of them not used to the heat that will be going on at that particular time. So we are looking for some volunteers for EMTs, anything like that. If anybody knows anybody, if they feel free to reach out to us so that we can try to organize that for that team. So that is on that. So we also have, which I gave a flyer to each of the board members. I was just informed about the Mojave Queens Thanksgiving dinner raffle. So I wanted to let everybody know that the Mojave Queens are have a raffle going on, $1 each for the tickets, and a winner will get like a Thanksgiving dinner out of it. But they are raising funds for their community event as well. If you've noticed, going through the reception hall, we do have our community Christmas tree up. It's ready to be decorated. This was on the suggestion of one of our tenants that wanted to be able to participate in our Christmas tree event in December. So that is up and ready for decorations. It has one decoration on it already. So we're excited about that. Another reminder about the CHP toy drive and Christmas tree event on December 16th. We are already getting several donations coming in, so I'm looking that this event will be bigger this year than it was last year. And we still have our tenant Christmas tree competition going on. So I do have a few tenants that have signed up for that. So I'm anxious to see how many we'll actually get. And then all of the trees, again, will be raffled off on the 16th.
Right. And the event with the Christmas trees was a huge success last year, so certainly looking forward to it again this year. That made a lot of happy families for sure.
It did. And the kids, they were great.
That's wonderful. All right, thank you, Lynn. Is that it? I know it, but it's a long list. All right, we've got a lot of community events. It's excellent. Any others? Okay, and public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Minutes for the previous board meeting and 2 check registers. Is there anything anybody wanted to discuss? Speak now, forever hold your peace before we put a motion out there.
Motion to approve A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of approving the 3 items on the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed. Consent agenda passes. 1 action item. Contract award, Roper Street Water Improvement Project. Floyd, what you got?
Good afternoon. This is the water improvement project that extends from the general aviation area down to Byers Street along the Roper Street entrance. Back in September, we had a public bidding. We had 4 bidders: R.E. Chaffee, Griffith Company, Lyles Utility Construction, and Unified Field Services. R.E. Chaffee is the low bidder at $1,964,964. It's a 10-inch standard steel pipe that we believe is at least 50 years old. It runs north and south along Roper Street. It's one of the oldest sections and one of the most problematic with the most repairs recently. So staff recommend that we award to the low bidder, R.E. Chaffee Construction Incorporated. And I do have Mead and Hunt as well, or Mead and Hunt is on the line as well to answer any questions along with myself.
Okay, is this in reference to the infamous water line where we've had discussions on can we abandon in place?
This is the water line that runs underneath the GA expansion area as well as building 86.
So, and we have Mead and Hunt on the horn. Chuck, what questions do you have?
Well, I talked to Boyd a little bit, and I talked to actually, sorry, names, Raphael from Mead and Hunt. And one of the paragraphs that he wrote is he recommends digging up the pipe in the potential new general aviation hangars. And I was trying to understand why we're doing that. And that's not part of the bid, it seems. So that's going to be separate then?
For the purpose of this project, it is not part of this project.
And then in talking to you, then it's galvanized steel pipe, 10-inch diameter mainly, I believe.
Correct.
And they're supposed to last 100 years is what the standard lifetime is. Now, how many times in the past, tell me all the times you've had to repair the pipe. One of those episodes, Ben.
The first pipe repair that I did when I became employed by the airport district in 2018 was on that section of pipe.
Okay.
And we repaired it just as recently as this summer again.
Okay.
It's probably develops a leak at least 1 per year, some years more frequently. I think in just this fiscal year, we've spent upwards of $50,000 on that section alone, just in repairs.
Sorry.
It also parallels a Southern California Edison pole line that runs north and south in that location. And during that last leak, it undermined one of the high power lines that we had to, that exacerbated that project. We had to get a utility company to come repair the pole line as well as the water line. So there's a multitude of contributing factors as to why I personally believe this is one of the most problematic sections on the airport.
Well, we talked earlier, and you feel it's about 20-25% of the piping on the airport?
It is probably less than 25% of the piping on the airport.
So I'm taking $2 million for this project, and I'm multiplying it by the whole airport, and that's money-wise. I mean, do we have $2 million that's scheduled to go to this
Yes, once we got the bids in, we
Okay.
reevaluated. We did trade out projects on the infrastructure side to
Okay.
make it to where, because staff and the CEO did feel like this was the most important thing to do right now. And then at mid-year, we go to rebudget and kind of look and see if we wanted to bring back any of those other projects that we had tabled. But this,
Okay.
just the nature of this, the airport needs water to function.
Right. Well, I agree. And I think we talked, if that were to totally be out of the system, it wouldn't affect the majority of the airport, right? It wouldn't lose the whole system in the airport.
Not immediately, but
Okay.
it's a loop system, so if we lost a portion of that, we have the potential to lose there's a potential to lose the entire airport if we have two failures.
Okay.
One in that area and one somewhere along Savovich or anywhere east of that. It could isolate the airport from the southwest section of the or southeast, correction.
And instead of replacing the whole pipe, what thoughts have had about repairing it? Because you also said there's a buildup. It's a 10-inch diameter pipe, and some of the diameters are like 5-inch or so.
It's probably flow restricted. I mean, we've seen flow restrictions up to 50% of the diameter of the pipe.
Could that be cleaned out? And that might help, because that's a quarter of the volume that would flow through there. So that's could be a contributor to the failures.
It could be a contributor to the failures, because what we've seen is pipes split at the welds. We've seen fittings fail. So it could be contributed by flow restriction, but I would have to defer to Mead Hunt to help answer that as well.
What's the nature of the blockage? Is it just sediment, or is it?
It's rust and corrosion and sediment, all of those things, hard water.
Mm-hmm. And would Mead and Hunter, somebody know that that's common and there's ways to fix that problem?
There are no ways to fix that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm failing my words here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of a 100% effective way to fix that. Short of flushing the lines on a regular basis, which we do at the hydrants. I think when you have 40, 50 years of buildup, I think that's not a reasonable solution.
Well, and talking to Raphael, he seemed that it was at least 30 years old, and 30 to 50 might be the numbers for it.
I think it's definitely in excess of 30, and I would say closer to
the history of galvanized pipe is they go 100 years normally, and the PVC pipe that will replace it with has like half the life of galvanized pipe. So, yeah, I know it's an improvement, but longevity, if we were to repair the current system, would that be much cheaper than the $2 million that we're projected to spend on this?
Chuck or Raph, would you help with that?
Yeah, I don't know what the information for the galvanized, but usually galvanized it rots from the inside pretty quickly. Actually, galvanized is not being used for current standards for the same reason, because it starts rotting from the inside, and then what it used to be a 10-inch pipe, it gets smaller and smaller with the older debris that forms in the inside diameter of the pipe. So I wouldn't think galvanized is lasting 100 years. I will have to check what that number is, but don't think it's 100 years.
How about clearing out the pipe? Is that your experience in clearing out pipes like that?
I mean, typically when the rusting happens, the walls of the pipe, it gets weakened. And also you lose diameter because all the debris that forms on the inside of the pipe. The only method that I know that you can do to fix these kind of things is to provide like an inside liner inside the pipe. It's a plastic liner that goes on the inside of the pipe, but then you have a 10-inch pipe that has all this debris. Instead of having like a 10-inch pipe with all the debris, you end up with a 4 or 5-inch pipe, even if you fix it with the liner inside.
And do you think constricting it from a 10-inch diameter down to a 5-inch diameter, which is about a quarter of the thing, that could be partly a cause for the failures we've had?
Yes, I think it's a combination of the deterioration of the material due to rusting, and also when you reduce the diameter, typically the pressures spike a little bit. So that pressure spike also is probably one of the causes for some of the failures.
Okay, so the new pipe we install, it'll still have that buildup of materials and stuff, which is in the existing system now too. So $2 million for this, 15% of the piping may go to the other portions of the airport. Which,
You may see some sediment pass
Yeah.
by, but you're not going to have the corrosion issues that we have.
right.
So is in line with this conversation, is there something more we could be doing to be proactive in maintaining the pipes to prevent these restriction issues that may be the root of why we end up with so many failures? And I don't expect a pointed answer to that at this point, but throwing out there for food for thought.
I don't believe that there's an effective method when dealing with pipe that's aged as much as this has.
But,
So, like, most
not for
municipalities are using C900 at this point. Now, to my knowledge, it's not common to replace steel with steel. We would replace with C900.
And that's not what I'm driving at. It's, all right, for me personally, it sounds like this pipe is degraded and needs to go. But once it is replaced, right, as we just discussed, we're still going to get the buildups. Not necessarily blockages, but the buildups. Is there like a more frequent schedule of flushing the pipes that we should be doing to prevent getting in this scenario, to enhance the longevity of what's newly installed? And like I said, I'm not asking for a pointed answer, but near the conclusion of this, I'm going to be asking this again.
Sure. I think a contributing factor is that we weren't as thorough in the past with maintaining it, and that has contributed to the buildup. I don't know that increasing at this point because we are doing it on a regular basis. And the important thing would be to continue to do so.
Like, is there cleanouts built into the new one?
At the hydrants, we flush at the hydrants.
They're not flush, a cleanout where you could put in and mechanically, like, run basically a bottle brush down the
Yeah,
pipe
they're not
thing and
typically designed in. And on a water distribution system, that's not typical.
Well, we have very hard water here. I know I've gone through a lot of hot water heaters in my home over the years in Tatsby from well water. It's like, and that was literally the cause. It was just had to throw them away so if it's a pipe's a lot easier to maintain maybe than some other things if you've got provisions for it.
Floyd, would you say that there's buildup in the new plastic? I'm assuming that the new water line is plastic, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
There's no buildup, or generally in plastic pipe, there's no buildup, or
It's significantly less. Anything that you would see is sediment that's coming downstream.
Yeah, it's not rust.
Right.
Well, unless it's coming from the older pipe elsewhere in the system.
I've got a question. RE Chafee, have we used them before?
No.
Any experience with them?
No.
So just based on low bid, we don't know.
The basis of award was the lowest base bid. Correct.
Okay, I just wondered because sometimes that isn't the best decision. So did it have a reputation?
No, that is certainly something that we.
Okay, because I know sometimes the FAA will take a higher bid in case of an FAA bid. Just because of the proven experience from a particular contractor. So I just don't want to go low bid to save $300,000 to find out we've got a bigger problem. That's just my concern. I don't know how you address it.
Well, have any of these contractors that are listed here, have we worked with any of them?
Yeah.
We've worked with Griffith and Wiles in the past.
Okay.
That's pretty significant difference.
And Griffith and Lyles, they bid to the dollar of each other. Is that a typo? Or is that accurate? Very specific number.
That is probably a typo on my end.
I'm seeing very different numbers. This is for the first Schedule A. 2223 1927.
I actually became a little nervous now because I don't know this company and you don't know this company or its history. I assume we have a performance bond we have to.
Payment and performance bonds, yes, are standard in the contract.
And what kind of warranty comes with pipe installations nowadays? I mean,
For PVC, you're looking at 50 years.
okay. And that includes labor and everything?
I think there's a stipulations in the contract for labor warranties.
So if we had a leak within the next 50 years, that'll be taken care of by the warranty? Or
That I don't know if it's going to be covering the 50 years. I know there is a warranty for the first year for sure. to cover any defects on the installation of the material or the labor itself.
So I know you redid some of the other piping in the airport, and those have been holding up well then?
So in the last 6 years, we've only done a repair once in a newer section of pipe that was seen.
And then how new is that section then, approximately?
Well, early 20 teens. I believe that what we experienced there was not a defect in the material. It was the ground shifting.
Okay.
So it could have been a installation defect from a lack of compaction, but it was beyond the warranty.
Yes, Floyd, don't mean for this to come across as grilling you by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a non-trivial amount of money. But as was just pointed out to me, the bid totals that we're looking at on the spreadsheet, the multicolored spreadsheet, appear to be numbers that are very different than are bulleted in the memo. Why are they so different? Are these two different sources?
Raf, could you speak to the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're looking at the bid tabulation that shows the 4 different bidders. Is that the one you're looking at?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and our estimate, I think the numbers came in high. The main reason basically is inflation, mostly. We've been experiencing that in basically water projects, even aviation-related projects. Pricing are coming pretty high from what we expected to be.
So I'm looking at the bulleted numbers here that looks like what the decision was made on per the memo. And then we have different numbers that are real. Shouldn't we be making our decision on the real numbers? Why am I looking at artificially low bulleted numbers if inflation has caused the prices to go up?
Yeah, I think, if I may, I think it's because when you bid a public works project, you sometimes have additive items and deductive items based on the financing that's available to complete the project. If I recall correctly, and Floyd and Raphael, correct me if I'm wrong, but the low bid was determined based on additive items A and B, or one and two, or was it the base bid?
It was base bid.
A base bid, and those are the numbers that we use. If it turns out that we have the funds to do alternative 1 and alternative 2, then you see what the totals would be for that. And it's a requirement of law that you specify in the bid documents how you are determining the lowest responsible bidder. And so if the bid documents say it's the base bid, then those are the numbers that would be on your sheet that you would use to determine who the low bid is.
All right, yeah, thank you, Scott. That cleared up my understanding anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that might be it.
I still just have a bit of a concern with this company, but I guess.
So let's talk about that. The law requires that we award it to the lowest responsible bidder. They're the low bidder, so the question would be, are they responsible? We would have to have a factual basis for determining that they are not responsible, would have to give notice of that, the opportunity for them to appeal the decision that they're not responsible before we awarded it to the next low bidder. So the fact that we don't know them doesn't mean that they're not responsible. We would just have to have some factual evidence that would establish that somehow their bid is not responsive or responsible to the project.
Well, Raphael, do you ever done with this company? You know any history on them?
I do not have any history on that company specifically.
Huh. Where are they from? Located? Floyd?
I believe Raf has one.
But Scott, I'll raise that point too. You brought up a great point. It's basically the lowest bidder who's responsible and responsive to the bid. So it's determined that that sometimes that low bidder is not right. They didn't do something right in their bid, so the low bidder is sometimes not the responsible bidder or the responsive bidder. But in this case, the bid results did show that they are the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. So like Scott said, we'd have to have some methodology to show that they're not responsible or responsive.
I'd feel a whole lot better if I knew how long they'd been in business and if I knew they had tackled projects of similar scope to this in the past.
Yeah, they've done DOT projects before. They've done other significant public works projects. This is not a new startup company.
Okay, you've heard of it.
Okay.
Well, just a question, like just item one alone, they bid $8,350 for that item, and the others bid $45,000, $38,000, and that. So it's kind of 20% of the other bidders. So it's kind of like, wow, compliance with pollution, erosion, and situation control. Why are they a quarter of the price of the other ones? You know? So it's just, you see these numbers, they fluctuate so differently, and I'm curious why they're 25% of the others. But
that item specifically is kind of subjective, but that item includes basically providing all the measures to prevent sediment, siltation, and erosion during construction. So you'll see like all the gravel bags and preventing that during excavation there is not dust coming into the tenants and things of that nature. So to put a price tag on that, that's why it varies so much, because it's kind of subjective when it comes to that. And that item specifically is like that.
So are you saying it could be more than that bid?
It could be more, it could be less. I mean, we give them a specification on what parameters they have to meet, and they're responsible to put a price tag on those parameters.
Okay, so they'll have to abide by that bid.
Correct.
And just like you'll see that if you look at if you go down the list, you'll see difference in pricing between the contractors. Like on the next one, mobilization, where like, is it Lyle's Utility? They're a third of what some of the others are, or less than half of what the others are. So it will vary from contractor to contractor, but that's the number they're held to for that specific unit.
Do we have any other comments or questions from members of the board?
I'll make a motion.
All right, real quick, just comments from members of the public. Questions from members of the public.
Okay.
Anybody with their hand up here?
No,
Okay.
hands, not much out.
All right, so we've got a motion, and I cut you off. But
Yeah, motion to approve the RE Corporation, $1,964.
R.E. Chafee?
Chafee, sorry. Anyway, for their bid.
Do I hear a second?
One second.
Okay, all those in favor of awarding the bid to R.E. Chafee Construction Incorporated, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, none opposed. It is awarded. And that does it for action items. Thank you for putting up with all that, Floyd, and thank you, Meat Hunt, for being here.
Sure.
So those questions help Floyd out.
Anytime.
Okay, so that does it for action items. So we have reports. Okay,
That's me.
all right. Here we go.
Good afternoon. These are the financials for month ending September 30th, 2023. Bank balance just decreased 56,000. Operating revenue, this is our first quarter end, is at 27%, so we should be at 25%, so we're above on revenue. And operating expenses, we're at overall 25%, so we're dead on the expenses. Fuel sales, 110,000 gallons last month. And then on the AR, American Verde and High Desert Wireless, they both are continuing to make small payments towards their past due amounts, and they have vacated their property, so there's no new balances being added. Virgin Orbit and Maston still working with legal on the bankruptcies, and Dean Sos did pay his balance in full at this point.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Karen? Nope. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so next up we have the CEO's report, which presumably, Ariel, are you covering that today?
Question, where's Tim at today?
He is traveling.
Okay.
So if he did want to attend, unfortunately he is currently in an aircraft and could not call in for this.
Was the Air Traffic Controllers Conference, right?
I believe so.
That's what he's traveling for. Yeah.
So many of them. Wait, which one was this one? Okay, so for Tim's report, he wanted to report that the taxiway electrical rehabilitation project, we did receive the Caltrans grant and will now proceed with the contract with our already awarded bidder, Royal Electric. And Mead and Hunt will perform construction administration and preparation for the approval of both of those documents. We are still anticipated, it's by the end of the month, correct? To start on that project for Alpha?
It's going to be kind of late November, early December for the start of the project, yes.
Right. And we are very excited for that project. I've been at war with the whole short sign for about 4 months now, so I'm very excited to have that one going. It's the little things in operations. Inland Port update, Tim was able to speak to Herb Grable with Kidder Matthews Real Estate regarding the progress of the port. They're seeking interest in potential customers, including potentially a big box retail store that is interested in basing intermodal business in Mojave. And they've been able to secure service with Union Pacific Railroad. They're working with Kern Economic Development and Office, or Kern EDC and the Economic Development Office to help find companies that will be able to base their operations out of the port.
Okay, so it sounds like progress is now being made because the grant didn't come through, so now they're pressing forward with the budget that they
have. It did look like they're finally able to press forward. I know there's quite a bit of a standstill for a few months with the issues with the grant, and fortunately, it looks like they're seeking other alternatives and moving forward with that.
Okay, it's just been so many reports of stagnation on it, so it's glad to see forward progress.
I was very excited to see more than one line in the updated report. Water main system, I believe, fully covered everything that I had on that. Water system hydraulic modeling, Raph, I had you in here to provide any updates on the hydraulic modeling. Is there anything that we haven't covered, or are we good on that?
Yes. Basically, we have already like an electronic computer model for all the piping in the airport, where we're actually they're collecting all the information for water demands from all the tenants at the airport. And I believe there is a few of them that we haven't been able to get the water demands, specifically fire protection demands, which is the most water that is being used at the airport in case of emergency. So that's where we are. We need to finalize the collection of those demands. That way we can input that information into a model. And then once we do that, we're going to run several scenarios throughout the model for different kind of emergencies and make sure how the system behaves, identify weak points, and also potential improvements.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raph. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Gill here with Local Equity to provide an update on the hangar development.
Good afternoon.
Is the microphone on?
Let's see. How am I doing now? Better. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting us to chat. I'm here with my partner, Dr. Jean Raj, and we were asked to come in and give you a little bit of an update. As you all know, in the end of August, we signed an exclusive negotiating agreement to lease the land to develop general aviation hangars. We've also provided a timeline that we anticipate to follow, and we continue to anticipate to follow, within which we wanted to do some feasibility and diligence on how to build those hangars to suit for your needs. Our initial understanding of the need of the airport is that there is a growing wait list of general aviation hangars at the airport. At the time that we signed our memorandum or our exclusive negotiation agreement, there was 33 individuals on that list. And we quickly, once we signed the agreement around 70 days ago, we quickly proceeded to create a professionally made survey that was, together with the help of the staff here, sent out to the entire wait list that you have here, as well as to some other airports in the area and their wait lists. We received 18 responses, 3 of which were repeat responses from people who submitted multiple times. They might have just pressed the submit button incorrectly. The majority of them, all of them, 100% of them said, look, I don't want to have T hangers. Some of them were very, very adamant. I have some very explicit language that says, don't effing build T hangers. So box hangers is what it is. And more than 90% of them have airplanes that they want to store here that are less than 35 feet in width. So traditional size box hangers would suffice. But really, when you boil it down, there's around 12 or 14 of truly interested parties at the table right now. The layout that was previously given to us had more than 30. And so our initial intent was, hey, let's go and really custom design it for the current need and build them all. Well, it seems at this phase that we would probably need to phase some of them, and that's okay, right? The initial design had 2 rows of box hangers, 1 row of T hangers. And well, now if we're only doing box hangers, we'll need to reconfigure some of that site. In addition to reconfiguring some of that site, we were waiting for the fine relocation of that water main so that we can do a survey and we can do some soil testing at the site as well. So now that it's awarded, we can move on some of those items so we can give that data to our civil engineer to lay out what it would look like with some of those with the new potential phasing of the project. Our intent is to have phase 1 directly adjacent to the fenced area of the airport. So move the fence all the way to the back. Then do phase 2 as we see phase 1 advancing. Hopefully by the time that we have the layout, some drawing, we'll have some interested parties who are willing to sign on a tentative lease agreement. And if we see that there's enough and the drawings are let me call it sexy, excuse me, board, hopefully we'll get enough interest for phase 2 as well. Look, to build it in phases is not as affordable as it is to build it all together. We'd really rather just secure the whole site and do it all together. But we really need to get it to a place where we can put some leases in front of people and say, hey, are you willing to sign on the bottom line? It's very easy to say I'm interested. It's much harder to say, here's my potential deposit. So that's where we are right now. We believe that within the next quarter, so we're now in November, let's say by February, we'll be standing in front of you with an updated layout, with some site survey, so we can show you what we think about in terms of phasing. And hopefully that will take us then to the next level, which will be to get some soft bids from construction companies on what it would cost us to build the entire thing. I hope that within, kind of 6 months from today, I have it all lined up and we'll be able to, before the end of the year, as we were supposed to negotiate for a year, before the end of the year, have it all wrapped up with a beautiful bow around it while you're breaking ground on the water relocation. Any questions?
I've got one. I don't know if this is for legal counsel or what, but will they be held to prevailing wage?
No, sir.
Thank you.
What's the size of the box hangers?
Wait, I want to hear Scott's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah, Scott, did you hear the question?
Yeah, so the prevailing wage question is an interesting one that comes up a lot. And when there is private construction on public property, and frankly, the law can be applied in different ways and has been over time. Given that the developer will own the hangars and will have the long-term lease that will last the useful life of the hangars, I would say that it probably does not fall within the prevailing wage requirement, but I would assume that their attorney would look at that to determine if they do have to follow prevailing wage or not. Just because different courts come to different decisions on that question.
Okay, I hate to do that, but better be out front and not have an obstacle.
We agree.
I think it's a crazy law.
As a bit of background, so Local Equity, my firm, does development with a variety of municipalities throughout California. We're very familiar with with prevailing wage requirements, and I can tell you that besides of, like your council mentioned, it is a private development on public land. The real question that gets asked there is what is the benefit that is given by the public entity to that developer, and if there is a benefit that is given, then that prevailing wage discussion starts. Given the fact that we're leasing the land at market rate, which is what you're currently leasing it for, there's really no benefit that is given to us.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably the standard legal analysis and is probably the right answer in this case. So, yeah, I wouldn't have a disagreement with that.
Thank you, sir.
Got a question and a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
Do you have much experience with aircraft hangar property management construction? Is that something you've done?
We have quite a bit of experience in construction, property management, yes, as well as dealing with public municipalities. Aircraft hangars, no.
That's fine.
That's why we have our partner here,
So
Gene
the
Rausch.
comment I was going to bring in is I'm very excited that you're doing this, and that to encourage you about the statistics you had about waiting list of 30, then it's 50, then the actual viable is somewhere like 15. To give you some enthusiasm about how this can play out is there's a lot of people, it's a chicken egg thing. They don't buy an airplane until they have if there aren't hangars available, they don't make the commitment. So they put themselves on the list, but if no one's building or none come available, they defer the plunge into buying an airplane that they might have to tie down outside. Okay. Or they go to another airport and then they fall off the list. We've lost a lot of small businesses here that chose to go to another local airport for various reasons. If there was hangars of it, and we just got rid of, I'm sure you're familiar with, we had to tear down a row of hangars. So at a minimum, you're doing the great service to replace those. And they were all rented, I believe. The other thing that's encouraging is there's quite, because we deal with a lot of companies that are doing rapid prototyping, experimental flight test. There's people that want to dip their toe into aviation that aren't currently, someone like, let's say a Toyota or a Honda, or someone that wants to do a project, and they have a quick need for a building that's a short term. We're going to try this, and they come to us and say, hey, do you have a hangar right now? We need it for 3 months or 6 months, or Reno Racers, it's a short-term project. They don't put their name on the list. They call the airport manager. They say, have you got something available? And we say, sorry, not right now. And sometimes they end up getting referred to someone who might have space in their hangar, and they end up sharing with someone. So there's a lot of stuff like that where opportunities come up all the time where people have sometimes shorter-term needs, which is not great when you're trying to, talk to your bank for financing. But my point is they're frequent. So there's kind of like a diversity in long-term needs as well as, even if you built one, it wouldn't be empty. It may have sometimes 3 planes in it instead of 2. If there's room in it, someone may sublease and fill it up. But if they're not available, they don't put their name on the list. They go somewhere else because you didn't have what they needed. Some sort of long-term commitment like I'm going to relocate to Mojave, or I'm going to buy a second plane, or whatever. There's a lot of tenants on the airport now that have needs. Scale Composites is represented here, and they had a hangar on that front row that we unfortunately had to tear down. Right, it is, but there's times where you have a program that comes up, and because of like maybe security reasons or proprietary stuff, you can't let this customer go in the same building as the other one. So even though they have space, they need to release a separate building. There's all kinds of reasons. And it can be multiple years, the project could go on for years. So there's definitely a demand that isn't necessarily reflected by that list. That's only the tip of the iceberg.
And we appreciate it. And we know, we see the development of aerospace that happens here at Mojave, and we're excited to be part of it. So thank you.
Yeah. We've had a saying, I've been on the board, like I say, since the original general manager. And one of his sayings was, and this does not only applies to the general aviators, but office, we have nothing to rent. And obviously down there, we have nothing to rent. We would do it if we had the money, but because of our limited borrowing power, we can't borrow the money to do it. I would definitely encourage the board to do something like that.
We have a lot of clients that are international. You know, they come here because this is the right place to test. And so they're not necessarily held to specifically Mojave. They could go anywhere in the U.S. or Southern California. But a lot of other airports, they don't have the environment that we support for the type of work we do. Or they have a 10-year waiting list for hangars. You know, I mean, the LA Basin, it's crazy. So, you know, we offer something where they don't care that it's not in LA because they're not commuting, you know, they're coming from overseas and they're setting up a 1-year project, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank you for
there's a
your
lot of
partnership.
opportunities like that.
Question,
Yes, sir.
where have you built hangars then? What airports?
No, as I said, no experience in hangars.
Okay.
Buildings, construction, municipal, yes. My partner Gene Raj here built hangars at Fox Airport.
And then
he's
you talked about phases. So you're going to build like a row of hangars and box hangars, and what size box hangars are you talking?
So currently the standard size of 40 by 40 should suffice for 90% of the respondents. I've one who wants to store a larger plane. I'm talking to Tim about how to kind of fit this peg in a square hole, basically. But 40 by 40 seems to be sufficient for the majority of them.
And then when people sign up for leases, how long is that duration?
That was one of the good questions. That's one of them. Actually, so let me add, if I may, one of the questions that we had for them, do you want to lease? Do you want to buy? Some people, we don't mind. We'll buy, we'll build it for them. You want to own it? Fine, no problem, right? And then it basically gets transferred with part of the land lease. And so one of the responses some of the responses that we had from a lease point of view, some of them were 1 year, some were 3 years, some were more than 10 years. So it's a mixed bag between all of them.
Okay. And then the ultimate question, do you have financing to build all these hangars?
Good news. Okay. I only want to come with good news. Otherwise, I won't come. Right. Okay. And so we have, that was one of the first things that we put into gear. As a developer, you always think about it. Spoke to a bunch of our lenders, and we have a potential based on all the numbers, but we have a very excited Canadian lender who wants to be part of this. And Canadians are coming to the rescue.
Excellent.
Yeah. He wanted to actually come for a tour. He wasn't able to this time, but I'll bring him for a tour and show him around. But he's seen the numbers, he's seen the site, and they're very excited to be part of it.
So what do you see as we're going to break ground and start building hangars, and then they're going to be complete? What do you see as that timeline?
So as I said, within 10 months, we want to be done with some tentative agreements with potential tenants. We want to have, I'm going to say, 50% CDs. Most of those buildings are out of the box, right? They come off the shelf. And so I hope that within 12 months or so, we'll be ready to have submitted, approved by the airport, and pending county approval. That's kind of our timeline. We want to have, by the time that we're, you kind of relocated this thing, we're close to breaking ground.
Okay. And then after you're breaking ground, within a year?
6 months. It shouldn't be more than 6 months. Yeah. There is that, we need to talk about bringing the runway. That's part of the, where's the runway running? How's the runway getting there? And so on. So the taxiway, the taxiway. So we need to talk about that. There's a bunch of moving pieces here, right? How's the utilities coming there? Where's the water coming from? How is the taxiway getting there? And so on and so forth. There's a bunch of coordination that will happen. Those will be the delaying factors, not us.
So that means it sounds like from the time that you presented that February is when we're going to be having a discussion about the particulars like the taxiway and utilities. So February is that discussion?
No, I would say February for a potential phasing layout. If you're good with that, then probably by the time we come thereafter, May or June, for runway, other improvements, utilities, and so on and so forth. To be realistic, just because we all like to celebrate the holidays.
Of course. All right. From either the board or members of the public, any other questions for Dr. Thiemann? Yes.
Right now, there's currently one bathroom servicing all the GA. If this expansion takes place, is there going to be more public bathrooms, or what's that scenario look like?
I had two, if I may answer. I had two respondents who wanted to have a bathroom in their hangar. If we're pulling the water to that location anyway, it doesn't cost much more to add another bathroom. So we can tweak it as needed. Look, it's no good to us as a landlord if our tenants can go pee-pee. So at the end of the day, we want to have happy tenants.
It's important for pilots.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but yeah, to be clear, a community use one, not necessarily one per hangar, would be
Understood.
helpful. Yeah.
Yes, madam.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I'm really glad you attended, if for no other reason, for you to actually see in person the level of excitement we all have for watching this project move forward. So we're very glad for you to have attended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I suspect we're going to be the long pole in making it happen. And
the pole.
I mentioned we will be the hurdle, the tallest hurdle as far as schedule. Is us getting taxiways and infrastructure in for you to finish the project.
It's that. It's
I mentioned that so that we're aware of it and we start moving as fast as possible now.
Great. Budgeting. Yeah, so probably going to do a review.
We find this is a partnership. We win, you
exactly.
win. No doubt.
We don't want to be the holdup,
Yes,
is my point. I'm trying to raise awareness that we want to go quickly so that you can too as well.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. All right, Arlen, what else do you have for us?
Is Straddle Lunch on the call by chance? No, usually have one of them. The 1 week they're not here. Okay. Just some highlights from the past couple weeks. We had our industrial and GA tenant meetings. They went very well. I'm glad to be able to, I wish it wasn't quarterly, but be able to meet and brief with our tenants a little more one-on-one and provide some updates on what's going on with the airport. Here's an ask for Strato. You may have noticed the beautiful 747. I don't know if they've released her name yet. It is in your board packets if you would like to take a peek. But she has returned to the airport. Will be parked in the Hammerhead intermittently. So I do encourage, if anybody is needing to use the Hammerhead while they are in transition, please let me know. And then we are also very fortunate to have one of our tenants being able to transfer to landing tests here as well for their experimental aircraft. And fortunately, that does tie up our runway quite a bit. So I do want to encourage for anybody that's on the call that may have any need to reserve those two spaces, please ensure that you are getting those requests to me ahead of time so I can deconflict as necessary. Tim was able to meet with the AFRL director to discuss progress in the payload processing facility, and it does look like we are moving forward well. I will let him, our next meeting brief on his CSU, Bakersfield, Saracoso, California Aeronautical University, and the NTPS partnerships. Unfortunately, not sure what the depth of those conversations were, so I'll let him brief on those. Next meeting, some of the pending projects we're working on in operations is a better design and layout for transient parking, which will help better facilitate some of those self-serve fueling operations. We've already begun moving vehicles around so that aircraft are better able to access those self-serves. And we're going to work on surface painted markings to more clearly lay that out and possibly move a couple of the transient parking spots just so you have a little more wiggle room with your wings as you get into that space and try to get out of that space. And then another layout design, we're looking at redesigning the wash rack area. One of the inclusions with that is jet blast prohibited markings on certain areas. So we are not accidentally prop washing Kathy Hansen's hangar and everybody else's hangar, but at least trying to redirect some of that away from the GA hangars and not kicking up dust and debris towards the ramps and movement areas. So we're reworking on those. And that is all I had for Tim. He did have some contracts, and then the property rented BAE Hangar 70. Lynn, can you brief on BAE? Thank you. And then Impulse's access license as well during their transition over to Test Site 1.
BAE, they renewed their hangar lease for Hangar 70 with the ramp and the land around it for 3 years, 2 year with 2 1-year options. So, and
That's the one next door here.
70, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't been in one of them. That's the hangar numbers.
Yes. So they've been in the building. They've been in the building for many years, and their last lease that was approved was scheduled to be terminate on November 1st. So they started the renewal process in May, I believe it was. That's about sometimes how long it takes to get a lease renewal. Yeah.
Okay.
But everything is good, and it. With the new rates and the new billing, it includes the CPI increase, and they're happy and we're happy.
Mm-hmm. And then for Impulse as well.
Impulse. So Impulse is obviously at Test Site 1, and they're still in their development stage of getting their site developed, and we just met with them yesterday. They still are very close to doing their PD plan. So in the interim of that, they've had Test Site 12 and continue to do their testing there since I think 2020, I think. And so they thought that they would need an additional 3 months out there before they actually can move to Test Site 1. And right now they have a small QD where they're able to operate out of Test Site 12.
Great. Any questions for Lynn?
Any questions for Aaron?
All right, let's release Lynn first if we can. Yeah, no comments from anybody online for no. Oh, okay. All right, go for it.
What's the status on the waste oil receptacle?
That's Floyd.
That's what we all
That was
like her to
supposed to
look
be
at.
Welcome back.
by the end of October.
Yes, I did promise at the end of October. We are putting the final touches on it, and it should be within the next week or two that we get it moved over. So what we have is an enclosure of basically a shed that we contained it in, and we're finishing that up, and we'll be moving it over very soon.
So this will be usable in the next
This will be usable, I would say, in the next 2 weeks.
All right, that is spectacular.
What's the reason for putting it in the shed versus?
Stormwater requirement, we have to keep it out of the rainwater. It has to be contained. So it has to be on containment, and it has to be covered from the rain. And we have to have
Other
some.
airports, they're all exposed, but they have a containment basin around the bottom like they do with self-serve fuel tank or whatever, but I've never seen them in a shed.
So in fairness, it does not have to be enclosed, but it was just as easy for us to enclose it and keep it clean. It has to be protected from the rainwater. If it's not at other locations, I couldn't comment as to why, but that is a requirement of our stormwater regulations and the environmental health.
Okay.
All right, super. Thank you, Floyd. Any other questions for Ariel?
Just a comment, maybe this it's correctly directed. The wash rack sign has all these do's and don'ts. I think it needs to be updated.
We are looking at that as part of our painting, and I'm working very closely with Floyd to make sure.
I think it's just outdated. There's things about, lockbox. There's stuff that it's not applicable.
Right. It is part of that project to make sure we're updating that, and I'm working closely, or I will be working closely with Floyd to make sure that we keep the pertinent ones in and the outdated ones can be removed.
Great. Thank you. And I do have one for Floyd. Runway 22, last time I landed on it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, there was weeds growing through the cracks on the runway.
I do not believe that there are any longer.
Okay.
So that should have been taken care of last week.
Okay. Do you put any kind of you treat it with anything or just cut them down?
We cut them down and then we spray an herbicide afterwards. We are looking next year, based on our licensing, on switching to a pre-emergent as a soil sterilizer. But right now we use an herbicide, specifically in the paved areas. So where it does grow up in the cracks, that's the most effective way we've found.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Ariel or Floyd? Okay, thank you so much for that report, and pinch hitting for Tim as he's on his way back. Okay, so that means we are on to director's comments on items not on the agenda. Awfully quiet, Terry.
I'm good.
You're good. Everybody good? Okay. Then we are ready for a closed session.
Before we go in, let me just say that there are literally no updates for any closed session item.
We would closed session today then.
So unless the board has questions about the items on the closed session agenda, there are no updates on any of the matters that are listed there.
I am perfectly content to skip closed session unless I hear an objection. Okay. Well, that is wonderful news, Scott. I don't remember the last time we didn't just have a lengthy closed session. In that case, we are ready for adjournment. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
For everybody who, no worries. Thank you so much for everybody who attended and all the commentary. It helped answer a lot of questions, and we got a lot of good information on community events coming up. So thank you so much, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
You're excited to be done. Carrie is done.